So you want to submit your books to CGC for grading? When are they coming back? And how much is it going to cost you? We're going to break it all down for the uninitiated next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. If you like the content on the channel, please comment, like, subscribe. We just passed 2,500 subscribers, and a little bit later this week, we're going to be doing a live giveaway. I haven't planned it all out yet. Maybe Friday night. We'll see. Anyway, I wanted to talk about CGC. We know CGC has been getting a lot of negative attention, and deservedly so, for their new stance on notes on the label. And I was watching a video from Bry's Comics, and he had contacted them where the defects that will no longer appear on the label may not, and probably will not, appear in the grader's notes. Things like incomplete, pieces missing, some of the problems in the interior of the book are going to be hidden. So there is a way to voice one's concern if you have an account with CGC. The looking for grader's notes at the time you're trying to buy a book isn't always convenient. It isn't always easy, and it's a lot more work on the buyer's part. Not sure why CGC is doing this, but that's not what this video is about. Recently, we have heard about people getting books back very quickly. I submitted an order to CGC, 10 books, and I got those books back door to door in 20 days, 20 total days. But that's not always the way that CGC works. Let's take a look. So let's take a look at what your options are. Most books that people are going to submit to CGC are modern books. That could range to something that came out this week to ranging all the way back to 1975. This book is from the beginning of 76. This is considered a modern book. Okay? So both of these are considered under the same tier as modern books. Now, so the costs and the turnaround times are essentially the same for those two. And what are those? Well, let's take a look. If you just submit a regular modern book, then the turnaround time that's listed on the CGC website, a couple things come into play. It's from the time that they open the package. Now, if I were to mail books out today, it would probably take up to a week. I'm going to use a week to get down to CGC. So I'm recording this on June 7th of 2022. Let's assume that the books arrive at the Sarasota facility on June 14th. That doesn't mean they're going to be opened that day. It's going to take potentially some time for them to be open. Usually 2 or 3 weeks in most cases. Has been my experience. Not always. But that being the case, the turnaround time for modern books is 73 days. Now, their turnaround time is not calendar days. It's working days. So it's basically, you take that number and you divide it by 5 to determine the number of weeks that it's going to take. And I'm not including federal holidays in there, which I'm going to assume that CGC does get their $15 an hour employees off for, like, the 4th of July, Labor Day, Christmas. But but I'm not counting that in because that's a very small number of days. So even if they opened the books a week from today with those turnaround times, the books would be coming back to me on September 24th, which is 3.5 months from now. So that's a good amount of time to wait. Now, CGC, these are all for books that are valued at $400 or less. Now, CGC does offer a fast track option, and that's the option that people have been talking about. They get their books back so quickly. The modern book that's worth less than $400, it's declared value. That's the value you declare for insurance purposes. So if the books are lost or damaged, either at CGC or in the mail, that's the amount that you get reimbursed for. That costs $24 for a modern fast track book. So if I want to send in, where is it? I put the wrong book back. If I want to send in either of these books, it's going to cost me $24. That's a base fee that doesn't include shipping the books to CGC and then them shipping the slabs back to me. So it's $24 base fee. Now, the more books that you send out at one time and the more books you get back at one time, the lower the cost per book in terms of shipping. Usually, if it's a 25 book order, which is what I like to send to CGC, it usually ends up being, I think, about $15 a book. If it's a solo book, it could be about, $40 for that book to ship back the slab. Now, there's an option called Fast Track, and this is a very popular option that CGC loves for people to use because it costs you an additional $15 a book. So instead of spending $24 to get the book graded, you're now spending $39 to get the book graded. And if the book is a $100 book, that's a big chunk of the value of the book. The Fast Track turnaround time is listed as 17 days, and that would mean that if they open the package next week, it would come back around July 7th, which is pretty close to the estimates people giving, sometimes even a little bit quicker. Now, the big deal is books that are worth less than $400 that are from before 1975, like this book. This is a book from the Silver Age, and it's not worth $400. In very high grade it would be, but this is higher mid-grade, I suppose. It's worth a couple, $200-$300. That would fall under the economy tier. And economy is where things are slow. So under the economy tier is anything prior to 1975, so early bronze, silver, gold. That has a turnaround time of 210 days, which means if that turnaround time is accurate, if they opened the books next week, you would expect to get them back at the beginning of April. Now, there is also the Fast Track. Now, the cost for that is $35. It costs more, $11 more than the modern book for the older book. And the Fast Track value is still the same. It's an additional $15. So that would cost you $50 to grade the book. So now, if it's a $300 book, you're talking about, 1/6 of the value of the book just in grading, not counting the shipping for a Fast Track. Now, the Fast Track does have a turnaround time of 23 days. So for economy books, it's very tantalizing to use that Fast Track because you're going to get them back mid-July rather than next April, which is an enormous difference in turnaround time. Is it worth the $15? Depends how much you think the book is worth, how much you're into it for. So those are the books that are worth $400 or less. Now you move up to the next level, which is books that are worth between $400 and $1,000. That is the standard tier. Now, all of these higher value tiers do come back quicker. The standard tier is a 15-day turnaround, but it costs $80 per book. You'd expect to get the book back on July 5th. So you kind of have to balance how much is the book worth, because you're going to pay, if you value the book at $400 or less, you're going to get it back in 23 days for $50. If you value the book at more than $400, up to $1,000, you're going to get it back like a week earlier, maybe a week and a half, and it's going to cost you $30 more. It's going to cost you $80 rather than $50. So what's the cost benefit there, right? Unless a book is worth pretty close to $1,000, you're probably better off putting the value at $400, taking a week or two longer and paying $30 less. My opinion. Now, the next tier after that, for books that are valued between $1,000 and $3,000, it's an express tier. And when you send in a book express, you have to write the words EX on the box that you ship it to so that they know to open it more quickly. Now, one of the hacks that people have that seems to work is to put an express book in with lower valued books so the box gets opened and all the books get put into the system earlier. The books, if you send in a whole batch of books that are at different tiers, they're going to get separated and they're going to get shipped back to you separately. Now, the Express has a turnaround time of 12 days, but it costs $130. Now, again, for a $2,000-$3,000 book, that might make some sense. But for a book that's like $1,000 or $1,500, maybe you're going to keep the value at under $1,000. So if you did do the turnaround time, you'd probably have it back by the end of the month. Now, the biggest books are walkthrough. Those are the books that are worth $3,000 or more. Your huge grails. Your, the Hulk 181s in higher grade, your FFs 1s and 5s and 48s and ASM 1s and 3s and all those huge books and high grade books, regardless of the era, right? The only time that the era, 75 or pre-75, comes into play is for the $400 or less books. Walk through $3,000 or more, turnaround time is 9 days, and you put WK on the box so it gets opened right away. So if you were to submit a walkthrough box today, they get it next week, you'd probably have it back around June 26th. Now, for the walkthrough, it's 3% of the fair market value of the book. So whatever you declare it at, if you declare the book to be worth $10,000, right, you're paying 3% of that, or $300 for the book. Okay. Now, there are some other options as well that should be considered depending on the books that you're looking at. Now, one thing that I had an experience with recently was a reholder. A book arrived, it was shipped poorly and cracked. I had to send it in for a reholder. Now, a reholder is only $20 for a book worth under $1,000, but that does not include the shipping back. And usually you're not sending in, 25 books to be reholdered. You're sending in one or two that were damaged after they had arrived from CGC and they were changed hands. If the book arrives and you open a CGC box and the book is damaged, then reach out to customer service and they should be able to take care of that without costing you anything. So the turnaround time for reholder is 68 days. So if you sent it out today, you'd get it back around September 17th. A reholder for a high value book, $1,000 or more, has a turnaround time of 39 days. It costs $50. You'd probably get it back beginning of August. Now, another option, especially for modern and economy books, the books that are worth under $400, is a pre-screen. What a pre-screen is, you need to send in at least 25 books in a certain tier. So you need to send in 25 post-75 or 25 pre-75 books. And you would preset the minimum grade you're going to accept for those books. This is very popular among modern books where the books are worth something in 9.8s, maybe in 9.6s, but really not worth much in lower grades. I tend to prefer 9.6 pre-screens. It gives you a little flexibility, get some more books graded, but you have to look at what the value of the book is in a 9.6 compared to a 9.4. Now, that is an extra $8 per book, but it adds, the pre-screen adds $8 to the cost of the book if it's not graded. So let's say you send in 25 books and 20 of them get graded at 9.6 or 9.8, if that's your pre-screen. for a 9.6, and 5 of them get rejected. They are not graded at that level. Those, you're going to charge $8 for each of those books, $40 for there, and you're going to get charged a grading fee for the other books. And it adds 30 days to your turnaround time. Not a month, 30 business days, closer to a month and a half, 6 weeks. So if you were doing that for a modern book without fast tracking it, you know, you're talking about getting the book back the beginning of November. If you're talking about an economy book and you're fast tracking, you're talking about getting it back in the middle of May. Now, they also offer grading of magazine-size books. Well, for the higher value books, it's the same tiers. Standard $400 to $1,000, Express $1,000 to $3,000, Walkthrough $3,000 plus. Those come back fairly quickly. It is, and it's pretty similar for Modern and Economy. Modern has a 170-day turnaround time, and Economy 163. So you would get those back in late January, early February of next year. Modern magazines cost $32. Economy pre-1975 cost $42. Now, when you have a book, in order to maximize the value of the book, you are very well served having it cleaned and pressed. That adds time to it. If you get in touch with a third-party cleaner and presser, if they're good at all, they're going to have a huge workload because people are using them. So you're going to have to wait several months for them to get to clean and press your books unless you have a relationship with them or you use somebody that's unproven and you take your chances. If you could do it on your own and learn that technique, which is what I've been working on, then you can cut some time down, but it takes your own time to do it. CGC has a satellite service that does offer cleaning and pressing. It's called CCS. But the turnaround times there, hold on. For a modern book, the CCS for a modern book has a turnaround time of 242 days. And it's pretty similar for the economy, regardless of the age. 242 days. So that book, if you submitted it to CCS, it has to get cleaned and pressed by CCS and then go to grading. Now, usually what I have heard, I have not had experience with this. I'll tell you about my experience in a minute. What I have heard is that it does get kind of prioritized in the grading queue once it's cleaned and pressed by CCS. But that turnaround of 242 days takes you to the middle of May of next year. You're talking 11 and a half months for them to clean and press your books. Now, if you fast track it, only 135 days, you know, it'd be sent off to grading around Christmas time. Still an enormous amount of time that the books would be sitting in Sarasota. Then they still have to be graded. Now, the experience, and my experience is not complete because I don't have the books back yet, is when I first started sending books to CGC, and I didn't know any third-party pressers. I didn't know how to press myself. I was a noob. I was a longtime comic book collector, but new to this aspect of the hobby. I sent them out through my LCS, which I often do, especially when I clean and press them myself now. I sent 60 books out, an original of 10 books that I gave to them, and then I got 2 more batches of 25. That was nearly a year ago that they were sent out to CCS, and they're still at CCS almost a year later. They haven't even gone from CCS to the grading process. And I'm not sure how long it'll take. We'll see how long it will take for books to be turned around there. I have a lot of books out at CGC. I had a 25-book submission that I sent in. 11 books were modern. I got those back. They went through my cleaner and presser, Erod. He mailed them out on January 2nd. I had the modern books back within a couple of months. The economy books are still there, right? And we're talking I'm not expecting them anytime soon just based on the way that it is. Those books, which are higher in value, probably should have fast-tracked. But you learn more from experience. Go to the CGC website if you're interested. Talk maybe to your LCS. Oftentimes they do submit books themselves. If you have found somebody that does pressing, a third-party presser, usually they submit books themselves. And if they have a CGC dealer account, they get discounts. Maybe they will give it to you, maybe they won't, depending on how they do business. But it is an investment of time and it's an investment of money. And you're spending money at CGC well before you get the books back. Okay? Now, usually they don't charge you until the books head off to grading. Unless you get them cleaned and pressed, then you're laying out money there. Their cleaning and pressing services, by the way, for a modern, it's $15, and for a fast track, it's $30. And I believe for an economy, CCS is an economy is $30 with $45 in fast track. It is only about 25 days for the higher value books to go through CCS. So those move through fairly quickly. Listen, if you're not worried about the turnaround times and you're in no rush, fine. I figure I'll get these books back in time for my retirement in 7 years. So this is just giving you a little bit of information and a little bit of food for thought in terms of if you want to submit books to CGC. Now, I will say this. Cleaning and pressing is crucial in order to maximize the grade of your book. You got to be careful if you want to do it yourself, and you have to practice because you're going to screw up and you're going to ruin books. Make sure the books that you ruin are $1 books and not $500 books. That's one big word of advice. But there are collectors who will look at CGC slabs or other company slabs and look to see if books they feel have been cleaned and pressed and could benefit from cleaning and pressing. And there are people who get really good grade bumps because individuals were very quick to send a book in because they thought it was in high grade, not really knowing the difference. If you're going to be involved in this hobby seriously and you want to spend your money correctly, you got to have at least an idea of how to grade a book. I keep trying to learn more. The books that I've gotten back from CGC, I've been pretty accurate with, so I feel pretty confident in my own grading, but I'm always gathering more information. When I get a next batch of books back from CGC, when I get a pre-screen back from CGC, I'm going to compare that to what I thought the grades would be and see how close I was, see what I missed, see what kinds of defects I haven't been evaluating carefully enough. All of those things are part of the process, but this is to give you an idea of how much money you're going to have to lay out and how long it's going to take. So let's say you're a crazy person and you're going to send in 25 comic books. Let's say 25 modern books because that's what you have, right? Maybe they're from your childhood, they're in nice shape, from anywhere from the mid-70s up until today. But you have 25 books, but you want to pre-screen them and you want to get them cleaned and pressed by CCS. So you just send them, boom, off to CGC. Whatever it's going to cost you to mail it down, priority, probably about $20, right, for the 25 books. That's not prohibitive at all. When they get there, you want them pre-screened, cleaned and pressed, pre-screened, and then graded. And they're modern books. So the cleaning and pressing, and let's say you don't think they're high value, so you're not going to fast track them. The cleaning and pressing is going to take you the better part of a year. So next May, they're then going to go to be graded. Now, worst case scenario, it takes another 5 months for them to be graded. So now you're looking at getting them back maybe by Halloween of 2023. more than likely, they might come back a little bit quicker if they've gone through CCS. But you're getting the pre-screen, so you might not get all of them back. And you're going to have to pay $8 for a book that you got cleaned and pressed but didn't get graded. Okay, and it's another 30 days, which is a month and a half in working time to get them back. So now you're talking about maybe you'd have them back Thanksgiving, beginning of December of 2023. And how much is it going to cost you? We got 25 books. So for each book, you're having them cleaned and pressed for $15. You're having them graded for $24, right? Which is $39. 39 times 25 is nearly $1,000. And it's going to be over $1,000 once they put on the other fees and the shipping costs to get the slabs back to you. So it's going to take you well over a year and over $1,000 to get 25 comic books cleaned, pressed, and graded. Know what you're getting into before you jump in. I'm not saying it's not worthwhile. I'm not saying it's not worth your money. But don't make the mistake of getting books that are in not great condition graded that are going to be worth like 50 or 60 bucks, maybe. Books that really don't have value. Now, if you want them for your personal collection because you want to have them graded and you want to display them because these are books that are important to you, that's an entirely different story. Then understand the value that you're going to lay out in that. This is just food for thought of what to do. Go to the CGC website, look around. I was just kind of playing with these dates to give everyone an idea of how long it takes for the different services. Now, if you have them cleaned and pressed yourself and you send them for, let's say, a modern fast track, you get them back in a month, which isn't so bad. But it's obvious that CGC wants you, but you're paying $15 more a book, right? It's obvious that CGC wants folks to pay that extra money per book. Why not? More money in their pockets. And it is an astoundingly different turnaround time. So what you see is you see videos, often from the same content creators, like, I got these books back in 2 weeks. I've been waiting for these books for a year. I've had that experience. I get books back 20 days door to door. I have books that have been there. They're about to celebrate their anniversary at CGC. So let me know what you think in the comments, what experiences you've had with the different services. In terms of turnaround times, I haven't discussed quality control issues. I haven't discussed how much you agree or disagree with the grades. We're just talking about cost and turnaround times. Those are entirely different issues. So anyway, if you want to, you can check out a couple other videos that I have here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.